Welcome to the Saturday Night Live Afterparty. This week, we'll be discussing Season 46, Episode 13 of SNL with host Regé-Jean Page and musical guest Bad Bunny. I'm Catherine Coleman, and I am joined this week by Steve Finn. If you'd like to connect with us, you can do so at snlpodcast.com. Enjoy these selected highlights from this week's discussion. If you'd like to watch our full-length, ad-free sketch-by-sketch review, you can find it exclusively on Patreon and Subscribestar/SNL Podcast. It's our supporters who make this show possible, and we are so thankful to everyone who's already come on board. All right, here we go. Steve, so good to see you again.
It's great to see you. And you know what? It's nice to have a little one-on-one time. I've been a negligent contributor, so I've brought my glove, I've brought my ball. So let's go out in the yard, have a catch, and connect like we should.
Let's do it. It's time for me and Steve to bond. So John is gone. We shipped him off to Cancun with his daughters. And we're going to review this episode, just me and Steve, and probably be better for it, right?
Yeah. He just texted me his new cornrows. John did. He's looking great.
I bet that looks really nice.
It really does. Especially the beads on the end.
All right. Well, before we get into it, let's talk about next week with host Nick Jonas and musical guest Nick Jonas. Are you excited about that?
You know what? I'm going to unashamedly say I am. When the Jonas Brothers come on the radio, I'm not afraid to say I turn it up. I might even actively type in the Jonas Brothers into Spotify and put them on willingly. So yeah, I am a fan. And Nick's probably my favorite of them. He's kind of got a movie career now. He's been in a Jumanji outing, and he wasn't terrible in it. So I'm looking forward to see him pulling double duty.
Yeah, I think it should be pretty good. Nick Jonas has put out some pretty banging songs, and Jonas Brothers are nothing to, frown at either. Especially in this sort of new evolution of the Jonas Brothers. They've grown up. The music's a little bit more mature. I enjoy it, and Nick seems like he's a pretty charming guy, and I really get the feeling he's willing to laugh at himself. So I think that always makes for a good host.
Absolutely, and I've always enjoyed him on SNL. He's been on as a solo guest, and I actually really liked his solo stuff too. So I guess Nick Jonas can do no wrong if you ask Steve. That's what
got a little crush
the
going
takeaway
on.
is. Yeah, for sure. Mad man crush on Nick there.
That's fair. He's very handsome. And speaking of handsome, Regé-Jean Page is host this week. Woo! He's something to look at.
Famous for it. Yeah.
Let's get into his episode.
Guess I gone a little bit loco. What? Loco?
A year into lockdown, and we're all mentally ill. And this had a cameo from Bad Bunny himself, seen here just behind Steve's head.
Absolutely.
So I take it you liked this one.
Yeah. I wish this drink was real. If I could just take that right now. But as for the sketch we were talking about, I really enjoyed it. I must say, not just the relatability, which goes without saying. A lot of people are probably, seeing a lot of themselves in this sketch after a year of what we went through. But I just got to talk about how well this was put together, because the technicality of this, one shot in particular, which was technically a bunch of different shots stitched together to appear seamless, where she appears in different parts of her apartment doing various crazy woman things. That was really well done. And
yeah, it reminded me, they did kind of a similar Steadicam trick in the Christmas morning sketch.
Okay.
And they're both by Paul Briganti, directed by him. So he's knocking these out of the park.
Yeah, for sure. So that's what they're using is Steadicams, because all the Pete parts, the way the camera jumped around on him, it almost seemed like some kind of programmable jib or something.
I mean, they might have that too.
Yeah.
I'm sure they do.
But yeah, like it was hilarious and all that. But I think this scores special points for how
Mhm.
technically uh, impressive this was and how well they brought it all together and just made a really cohesive, impressive looking visual out of the
Absolutely.
sketch.
I think the track was actually produced, I don't remember the name, but it's one of Bad Bunny's producers, like, came in to produce this
Oh, no way.
song. Yeah.
Gotcha.
That's pretty cool. Yeah.
Okay. Cause it does seem a little bit more deviant from a lot of the songs we've heard written by the same people. Like you can
Right.
kind of
Mhm.
sense some similarities. So that's, yeah,
Yeah.
that would explain why this was new and fresh sounding.
Right. Yeah, I really liked this. I think SNL's music videos are one of my favorite things about the show, 'cause if you look back, like, "Jizz in My Pants" was probably the first time in, like, my memory of my life that SNL really came into, like, kind of mainstream culture. I mean, it's always mainstream, but, it really entered the consciousness and, like, it was when YouTube was just starting, so it was the first kind of big viral thing, so that sort of was almost my biggest, earliest exposure to SNL, and then we went into stuff like the girl groups having, Do It On My Twin Bed and, Back Home Ballers that I loved, and then these past few years, Chris and Ego and Pete have been just, hitting bangers a few times a season, usually with the help of, Will Stevens, usually writing on those, and I just really love them because what makes SNL music videos so great is that they're funny, obviously, but they're always so well produced. Like, they're
Yeah,
always a good song
for
that you
sure.
wanna sing. They're catchy, like, they're really well produced, and that's just what a nice layer to add on top of a funny song,
Well,
you
yeah.
know?
I mean, that's the Lonely Island effect right there.
Mhm.
You
Yeah.
like before Andy Samberg and those guys came in, you didn't see anything like that. These
Mhm.
higher production values for songwriting and producing.
Mhm.
And,
Pre-tapes.
that was such a hit. And after they left, clearly Lauren saw the value in keeping talent on that can produce,
Right.
really banging tracks and
Mhm.
actually have a decent hook in the
Yeah.
music production, because that's what helps sell the humor is if you actually make music that slaps and you'd actually
Right.
play at a party and people would dance too.
Right, yeah,
They
like,
might
I have
laugh.
these songs on my, like, phone, and I listen to them sometimes, like, on the train. Like,
Yeah.
that means it's a good song.
Yeah, for sure. I'm like,
Yeah.
Alexa, play Dick in a Box. It happens all the time.
Yeah, and let's not leave this without mentioning Ego and how strong of a performance she gave. Man, she is just on fire. I've loved her since the first episode she was on, but I think she's really, really hitting her stride now, and this featured her super strongly, and I thought she nailed it.
Yeah. I'm realizing more as we talk about it how much Ego did in this,
Mhm.
and it's awesome.
All right, let's keep going. A man interviews for a job at a spec ad agency with a questionable background. What'd you think of this one?
Well, I was enjoying my confusion, I guess,
Right.
because this was just top shelf surrealism at its
Mhm.
finest. The only really grounded thing here is that it had something of a premise. Like you could say on paper, oh, this was a sketch about an ad firm that does specs.
Mhm.
And like that's an idea for a sketch that could be
Yeah.
played generally straight.
That's already a good premise because who would do that?
Yeah. And you get jokes out of that. And almost immediately, this thing gets derailed into like the most weirdest nightmare uh, quality kind of surrealist beats.
Mhm.
It's so out of there. And every time I think that SNL has done the weirdest thing, like whether it be Office Race or some other Good Neighbor
I
stuff,
forgot about Office
yeah, you
Race.
know what I'm talking about. Like they've
Yeah.
gone into the weird territory,
Mhm.
but like this one had no holds barred,
Frank.
and
Yeah.
I just love this stuff. It's the kind of silliness that I crave. and I've been very sated by this sketch.
Yeah, this was chaotic in the best way possible.
In a word.
They pulled out pool noodles and hitting each other. Like at the end of the sketch, I looked at my husband and went, "What?" But like as a compliment, like I loved it. I thought the little sub game of Bowen coming in with the notes was great.
Yep.
And then the one that just said hi. Fantastic. And the way that Bowen would enter the frame and come out just so quickly was fantastic.
Oh yes, Bowen was the ribbon on a beautiful package. He was a great presence. Yep. And he's so good at that. He's just so good at being a side character, just in the corner. Hardly any lines, like maybe no lines, but you're laughing at what he's found to chew the scenery with. He'll always find a way.
Yeah. Even like in Driver's License, I don't think he sang the song, but I don't think he had a line. He just appeared and was Bowen, and it was great.
If he didn't have a line, I believe it, but he's still the most memorable. That's the one person I remember most from that sketch.
Right.
The face touching and all that.
Right. Yeah. But yeah, the job interview sketch, I loved. I thought it was just so chaotic in the best way. Bowen sold it, and it surprised me, and laughter is just delighted surprise, right? So good job. This was great. And my favorite moment of it was when they're hitting each other with pool noodles and Bowen comes in and says, "You're gonna kill each other."
Stop it, you'll kill each other.
Like he's genuinely concerned that they're actually in real danger from pool noodles. Loved it.
Yeah, and then the guy evaporates. Fantastic. Great heightening. Amazing. Good job.
About that evaporation moment.
Okay.
I think that was the moment where they kind of proved that they have successfully written an amazing surrealist sketch, because by the time we went through everything we did and got to this moment where he puts on a hat and fades away, my reaction was just like, sure.
Of course.
That makes sense at this point.
You're right.
This might as well happen now after the pool noodles and the notes and everything else we just went through. Yeah.
A sketch is insane when someone evaporates at the end and you're like, yeah, that was the only way to go.
Logical at that point.
All right. Well, up next, two families get into a prayer battle before dinner. Amen.
Amen.
I loved this one. Did you love this one?
I loved it. It's not that I come from a religious family myself, but I really can see the literal holier than thou attitude going on throughout this. It's not to be outdone by the spirituality. And that food was plenty blessed by the second or third prayer. So it was clear that this was much more about something else. And the whole competition between the two families was great, because I think a lot of people, maybe misuse religion that way, not to actually do a good thing, but to be perceived as a good person. And it upsets some of these people to have someone in the room that does that a little bit better than them. So then it becomes a little game of, letting the food go cold and and starting like a whole church sermon in a house.
Right.
Yeah, it's a great way to just let things blow up and escalate in this sketch. And yeah, it was a lot of fun to be had.
Yeah, I'm not a particularly religious person, but I come from the South where everyone is. So, if I go home for Christmas dinner, there's going to be a prayer, and my mom has these really rambling prayers that leave me and my brother to just look at each other like, the hell is she talking about? So this spoke to me, and I really loved it. And like you were getting at, there's that competition there, and I loved that they were kind of using their kids as pawns in that. Like my youngest son will lead the prayer, and it's like, well, my boy's got this, and I actually felt like they could have done more with that, like because it seems apparent that something in here got cut out, I think, for the sake of the show clock. but I think there was room here as far as just what we saw and from a writing perspective of more beats to flesh out that part of the competition of like, well, my family's better. Well, my mom's going to do a prayer and she's been leading the church choir for 25 years. And well, I actually went to seminary. Like, like just really upping that competition aspect of it, I think could have been really fun. And then getting those prayers more and more specific and weird.
Yeah. I mean,
I think, yeah.
That's a good point. But what I think they actually did is a good way of keeping it wholesome. Like they could have definitely gone into a lot more places, but it might have made things a little tense. Like they had that competitive narrative going through, but like no one was really like hating on each other or like anything like that. So they were able to like come together at the end and like dance together. And that was a very wholesome moment.
That's true.
I don't know if they went really weird and tried to go in too many places. They would have been able to land something like that. But what do I know?
No, yeah, I thought this was a really good sketch. I think because I liked it so much, I wanted to see more of it. Yeah. And that's not something I often say about sketches on SNL. I'm usually saying, I think they could have cut this beat. But this one, I was like, no, add more.
Yeah.
There's more time here. And yeah, let's talk about Beck doing the worm. Wow. Who knew?
He's so good at that.
He's just alarmingly good.
And like those first, he did some kind of like hand, feet, like bounce back and forth. I was like, okay, he's pretending to do the worm because he doesn't know how, ha. And then he does it. And I'm like, whoa.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. This sketch was super fun. I loved the specifics they were throwing in when Keenan's family was doing their prayer and, second cousin twice removed, twice returned. This had a lot of really great lines in it. Huge win for me. If you want to see our full sketch by sketch review, search for SNL Afterparty on Patreon or subscribestar.com. Let's get into moment of the night. What's your moment, Steve?
My moment of the night is Bowen Yang shedding a single tear and stating that the hat that faded away belonged to him. It was a great line.
That's a good one.
Just, that was my hat.
Yeah, my moment's coming from that one too. I played with some other things like the reveal of Mikey's legs and that trash can moment. But ultimately, my moment is Bowen coming into a pool noodle fight and very seriously saying, "Y'all kill each other." That got me every time. Fantastic. What's your best sketch?
Well, it's kind of my unofficial duty to go with the surrealist sketch as my best. I do it all the time, and yeah, I'm just an alt comedy guy, and I feel like this is a vote that matters. Like in the democracy that is SNL, if I say that I love this sketch, they'll make more of them. I know there's probably,
of course.
Yeah, I know it doesn't work that way, but I feel like this is me putting in a vote for that.
Right.
So SNL, please keep making weird stuff that doesn't make sense. Don't be afraid, because I will like it at least. So, yeah.
Well, I'll back you up. It was my best sketch too, the job interview.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that sketch was really great. Rewatchable, just silly in exactly the right way. I really loved it. And just there was enough going on, and then adding in the Bowen's little sub game coming in was a nice finishing touch on it that I thought was really fun.
Brilliant. It was, for sure.
And who's your MVP?
My MVP is going to be Chloe. And that was a hard decision to make because the cast just in general was on fire for this episode. But Chloe had the cold open. She had the Bridgerton sketch. She had a lot of great stuff where she actually had to carry it. And it made me realize that when I see Chloe in a position where she's going to be the main focus of a sketch, I have no nervousness or any kind of concern that she's not going to be able to handle it, because she's proven to me now.
You make a compelling point. Some of the other people I consider would be Ego or Beck. Ego had a great night, was super present, carried some sketches. Beck had some big moments, was in a lot. I think I'm gonna give it to Bowen. He wasn't who I was originally going to pick, but as we've talked about it, I think he's my clear choice, and that he wasn't in a lot. He didn't have the main role, but every time he appeared, he stole the scene, and that's awesome. I think he had a big night, and for not having, you could probably count his lines on two hands. Um,
Yes.
but he stood out that much, and he's a hell of a performer. So yeah, Bowen. All right, well, the big one on a scale of classic, great, decent, weak, or train wreck, how would you rate this episode?
I'm going to give it a great.
Okay.
This was super fun episode. I was laughing. I was impressed. So I had my humor. I had my entertainment from, just good filmmaking and editing and all that stuff. All the technical stuff was just so good. I didn't love the musical guest, but when it comes down to it, it's a very small portion of the show. Like those two songs, they make up like 6 or 7 minutes of airtime. Every sketch here was great. Every cast member was amazing. I just thought this was a great show. And even though I didn't know Regé-Jean, he was really good. He was a great first host. I just loved everything about this episode.
Fair enough. I'm straddling between a decent and a great.
Okay.
I felt like there were only 2 or 3 things that I really liked. Some other things that were okay. I thought Update was, one of the weaker ones.
Fair enough.
But yeah, I think it's fair to go great. 'Cause those like 3 things that I liked were really, really well done. Decent first time host, and I loving the fresh air and the cold opens. And yeah, it was a strong episode, and I think to steal John's sort of criteria, which I think he stole from someone else, to cut it down to an hour for the repeat, I think you got a pretty solid episode, so I'll call it a great.
There you go.
All right. Well, we're on a streak of some good episodes. We reviewed the last several pretty highly, so I hope they keep this strong stuff going into week 5 next week, and that's a wrap. Thanks to Steve Finn. And thanks as well to our most generous patrons, Sam Bowers, Neil Weinstein, Justin Gardner, Carissa Eubank, Grace Kogan, and Brian Clark. If you're enjoying our show, please subscribe on YouTube or wherever better podcasts can be found. Your subscription helps us grow, and your support is greatly appreciated. We'll be back next week when SNL returns with host Nick Jonas and musical guest Nick Jonas. But until then, this has been episode number 129 of the Saturday Night Live Afterparty podcast. I'm Catherine Coleman. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.